I was 24 and had just moved to a new city for a job in marketing. I didn't know anyone, so I hopped on a couple of dating apps to try and make some connections, maybe even find a relationship. I matched with a guy named Alex. He seemed pretty normal on his profile. Good job, nice photos, liked hiking, all the standard stuff. We chatted for about a week, and the conversation flowed easily. He was funny and charming, so when he asked to grab a drink, I agreed. Our first date was at a quiet little speakeasy downtown. It went really well. We talked for hours and had a lot in common. I felt comfortable with him, which was a big deal for me in a new city. We ended the night with a hug, and he texted me immediately after to make sure I got home safe. I thought that was sweet. We set up a second date for the following weekend, dinner and a movie. Again, things went great, but during dinner I noticed something a little off. He was very intense when he looked at me, almost like he was studying me. He asked a lot of very specific questions about my daily routine and my apartment building. I brushed it off, thinking he was just interested. But looking back, it was definitely a red flag. A few days later, I had a really busy week at work and couldn't reply to his texts right away. He started double and triple texting me, asking if he had done something wrong or if I was ignoring him. It felt weirdly possessive for someone I'd only been on 2 dates with. I told him I was just busy, but the frequency of his texts didn't slow down. By the time the weekend rolled around, I was feeling overwhelmed and honestly a bit turned off by his neediness. So I decided to cancel our plans for a third date. I sent him a polite text saying I didn't think we were a good match and wished him the best. His response was immediate and angry. He called me a tease and accused me of leading him on. I didn't reply, hoping he would just cool off and move on. But that night, my phone started blowing up with calls from a no-caller ID number. I let them go to voicemail. The messages were just minutes of heavy breathing or silence. It was terrifying. The next morning, I woke up to a string of texts from him, ranging from apologies to more insults. But the scariest one was a picture of my apartment building's front door with the caption, "I know where you live." I completely panicked. I had never told him my exact address, just the neighborhood. I must have let something slip, or he had figured it out somehow. I called the police, and they took a report, but said there wasn't much they could do unless he actually tried to break in or harm me. They told me to block him and keep my doors locked. I spent the next few days living in fear, constantly checking over my shoulder. One night, I was coming home late from the grocery store. I pulled into my assigned parking spot behind my building, and as I was getting my bags out of the trunk, I got an overwhelming feeling that I was being watched. I froze and scanned the dark parking lot, my heart pounding in my ears. That's when I saw a figure standing in the shadows near the dumpsters, just watching me. I couldn't make out his face, but the build looked exactly like Alex. I dropped my bags and bolted for the back door, fumbling with my keys. I finally got inside and locked the deadbolt behind me. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely hold my phone. I called 911 again, and they sent a patrol car, but by the time they got there, the person was gone. I never saw Alex again after that night, and he eventually stopped trying to contact me. But the experience completely shattered my sense of safety in my own home. I ended up breaking my lease and moving to a different part of town a few months later. I'm still jumpy whenever I'm alone at night, and I've completely sworn off dating apps. I don't think I'll ever feel totally comfortable meeting strangers again. I was living in a duplex about 5 years ago. It was a nice setup, quiet neighborhood, and my side of the house was perfect for me. My neighbors in the other half were a middle-aged couple. The husband, let's call him Gary, seemed friendly enough at first. A bit socially awkward maybe, but harmless. He was retired and spent a lot of time working in his garden. Whenever I'd be outside mowing the lawn or getting the mail, he'd always strike up a conversation. They were usually pretty one-sided. He'd talk at length about his plants or the weather, but I was polite and would chat for a few minutes before excusing myself. Over time, though, his behavior started to cross the line from friendly neighbor to something else. I'd catch him staring at me from his kitchen window whenever I was in my backyard. Not just a glance, but a fixed, unblinking stare that would last for minutes. He started coming over to talk more frequently, sometimes multiple times a day, for trivial reasons, like borrowing a cup of sugar or telling me a joke he'd heard. It got to the point where I felt like I couldn't go outside without him immediately appearing. One Saturday morning, I was rushing to get ready for work, and I saw him heading toward my front door. I just didn't have the time or energy to deal with him, so I quickly locked the door and pretended not to be home. He knocked for a solid 5 minutes, Then I heard him walking around to the back of the house. I peeked out my kitchen curtains and saw him standing on my back patio, trying to peer through the glass door. It really freaked me out. Later that day, when I got home, I decided I needed to set some boundaries. The next time I saw him outside, I politely told him that while I appreciated his neighborliness, I was a very private person and needed my space. I asked him to please stop coming over so often and to respect my privacy. His whole demeanor changed instantly. The friendly smile dropped. His eyes got dark. He didn't say a word, just turned around and walked back into his house. After that day, things got much worse. I started finding weird things on my doorstep. Dead flowers, strange little trinkets. I knew it was him, but I couldn't prove it. The staring from the window intensified. I felt like a prisoner in my own home. The climax happened on a stormy night, about a week after I'd confronted him. The power had gone out in our neighborhood, and I was sitting in my living room, reading by candlelight. Suddenly, I heard a loud banging on the wall that separated our units. It wasn't just a knock. It sounded like he was taking a hammer to the wall. He was screaming my name over and over, calling me an ungrateful bitch, telling me I thought I was better than him. I was absolutely terrified. I grabbed my phone and ran into the bathroom, locking the door behind me. I called the police, whispering frantically that my neighbor was trying to break through the wall. I could hear him moving around outside now, pacing back and forth on my front porch, rattling the doorknob. I huddled in the bathtub, shaking and praying the cops would get there fast. It felt like an eternity before I saw the flashing blue lights through the bathroom window. They arrested Gary for harassment and disturbing the peace. It turned out he had a history of this kind of behavior with previous neighbors. His wife ended up moving them out a few weeks later, and I was so relieved when they were gone. But the psychological toll lingered for a long time. Every time I heard a noise outside or a knock on the door, my heart would jump into my throat. It took me a long time to feel safe in that house again, even after new, normal neighbors moved in. I had been working at this logistics company for about 2 years when this new guy started in the IT department. His name was Kevin. He was quiet, kept to himself mostly, but he seemed smart and efficient. Our interactions were purely professional at first, just the usual, my computer is acting up kind of stuff. He was always helpful and got things fixed quickly. One day, I was in the break room getting coffee, and he came in. We started making small talk, and I found out we both liked the same sci-fi book series. It was a pleasant surprise, and after that, I made more of an effort to be friendly whenever I saw him. I thought we were just becoming work friends, but I think he interpreted my friendliness as something more. He started finding reasons to come by my desk, even when I didn't have any tech issues. He'd bring me coffee in the morning or leave little notes with book recommendations. It was a bit much, but I didn't want to be rude, so I just thanked him and tried to keep things professional. Then the gifts started. First it was a nice pen, then a signed copy of a book I liked, then a piece of jewelry that must have cost a decent amount of money. That's when I knew I had to nip this in the bud. I asked him to meet me in the break room one afternoon, and I gently explained that while I was flattered by his generosity, I couldn't accept such expensive gifts, and that I just wanted to keep our relationship strictly professional, as colleagues. He didn't take it well. He got very quiet and just stared at me for a long, uncomfortable moment, before muttering an apology and quickly leaving the room. Things got really awkward after that. He would ignore me completely in the hallways, but I would catch him staring at me from across the office with this intense, angry look in his eyes. It gave me the creeps. My coworkers started noticing it too. One of them told me she saw him going through the papers on my desk when I was at lunch. I reported it to HR, but they just gave him a verbal warning and told me to keep my distance. It felt like they weren't taking it seriously at all. A few days later, I was leaving the office late after finishing up a big project. The parking garage was almost empty, and as I was walking to my car, I heard footsteps echoing behind me. I turned around and saw Kevin walking quickly towards me. His face was contorted with rage, and he was muttering something I couldn't understand. I panicked and started fumbling for my keys, trying to unlock my car door. He got closer and closer. I could hear his heavy breathing now. I finally got the door open and jumped inside, locking it just as he reached the car. He started pounding on the window, screaming that I had let him on, and that I thought I was too good for him. I was terrified. I was shaking so badly I couldn't even get the key in the ignition. I grabbed my phone and started dialing 911. He saw what I was doing and kicked the car door one last time before running off into the darkness. The police came and took a report, and this time, HR had to take action. He was fired the next day, and I got a restraining order against him. I never saw him again, but the fear of that night stayed with me for a long time. I started having panic attacks whenever I had to walk to my car alone, and I ended up finding a new job a few months later just to get away from the bad memories. It's scary how quickly a normal work situation can turn into a nightmare. You just never really know what someone is capable of.